I'm Jessikyaa.
I'm Storm the Teacup.
And I'm Kaiser Dragon.
And today we'll be talking about the Pokemon games.
Okay. Alright, so ably introduced by Jessikyaa there. I'll be leading the questions here. Now, me and Jessikyaa have some experience with the Pokemon games, but in this particular instance, we are subjecting ourselves to the greater wisdom of our fellow podcaster, Kaiser Dragon, who...
Greater wisdom in quotations there.
He might not be an expert in the matter, but he definitely is much better read than me and Jessikyaa. So a lot of this discussion will be framed around his knowledge and then our thoughts as a result of
That's
that.
not saying much though, but...
Well, we're here to have fun. And this one especially, we're going to try and make it a lot more light-hearted. We've had some serious discussions, and rightly so, some of the stuff we've been discussing do need to be discussed with a bit of a serious face. So we're going to try and make this one a bit more lively, a bit more jovial. So,
Jovial.
More juvenile, probably. But speaking about the Pokemon franchise, and this is where your expertise comes in as such.
Quotations.
Anybody with a passing knowledge of a Pokemon will always encounter this gen. Is these going to be first gen or fifth gen? Or have you just told me there's actually 6 generations now? So can you give us a brief explanation of this gen and which of the games fall into them as best you know?
Alright, well, put simply, yeah, there's currently 6 generations of Pokemon games. We're on the 6th generation with the really recent release of the X and Y games. And the upcoming, obviously, Alpha, Sapphire, and Omega Ruby games. The first gen games, which were back, I believe, in Japan, released on 1996 from February 27th, which was my birthday.
See, he already knows more than I'll ever know.
But that's probably the extent of my knowledge goes in terms of dates and stuff. But still, that was the only reason I remember it being released on that day, because it was my birthday.
So which games fall into the first gen then?
The first generation games you got was Pokemon Red and Green, released in Japan. Yeah, this is some people do get a little confused, but it was Red and Green in Japan, and then they later released Pokemon Blue.
Yeah,
so I think it's considered a bit of a slightly updated version. I'm not 100% sure what the main difference with that was, because I obviously never played them. Because when we got them over in the western side, we got Pokemon Red and Blue.
Yeah.
Obviously based on the later version of Blue from Japan.
Well, I know that at least with one of the glitches for Mew and some other glitches, they do mention only usable in Red and Yellow, and I knew there's Red, Yellow, and Blue. So it might have been an update, i.e., to get rid of those glitches in Blue.
That's
so
most likely
it's
the
possible.
Case, yeah, because back then we didn't have online patches to take care of everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's released buggy, we'll patch it up later on.
So then what's the second gen then?
Well, you got Red and Blue and Yellow, obviously with the first one. And then later on you got the release with the Pokemon Silver and Gold, which was again released on the Game Boy. But these ones I believe were sort of built for the Game Boy Color, which is just released at the time.
Yeah, that was coming out, yeah.
They took advantage of the newer hardware. And they were selling just as well as the original. The original was selling like hotcakes, wildfire, and they were just as successful. And of course, they had the sister game. They had Pokemon Crystal, which is the sister game to Gold and Silver, like Yellow was to Red and Blue.
Okay then.
And after that, we got back then was quite a bigger leap in terms of technological advancements. We got the original Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire on the Game Boy Advance.
Okay.
When this is when technologically really sort of increased, because there was quite a big difference in the gap there.
So is Ruby and Sapphire then those the third gen now?
Yeah, we're on the 3rd generation of them. Yeah.
Okay then.
And of course, they had the sister game of their own, where they got Pokemon Emerald as well.
All right.
Now the sister games, by the way, obviously just a 3rd release game. So it's not like. At first glance, you may think, it's like both games sort of combined into one. That's not the case, no, because you still don't get all the Pokemon released in that generation. For example, you don't get all of Ruby and Sapphire's Pokemon in that one game.
Yeah.
You still get the missing ones, which require you to have either one of them to fill the missing Pokédex.
Yeah.
And after that, no, we didn't. See, I'm still getting confused in myself.
Yeah.
We also got introduced to our first remakes that generation, which was in the name of Fire Red and Leaf Green, the remakes of the original Red and Blue.
Okay then, yeah.
Yeah, and that also came with the what was it called? The wireless adapter.
Okay then.
Yes, an advancement of the trading schemes because up until then you always had to use the old link cable.
Yeah.
To connect each individual Game Boys, which is really nostalgic when you think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the Fire Red and Leaf Green came with the wireless adapter, which you plug on the Game Boy Advance.
The Pokemon in the Fire Red and Leaf Green, were they the original Pokemon, or did they add any new Pokemon to it?
You obviously had like all the other Pokemon released up to that point, like with the second gen and third gen.
Okay,
and
so
stuff
they included all of those.
It was a huge upgrade as well. Though you still got like the central core. The Kanto region of the first game as well. So the majority of it was there that just gave it like a huge, good polishing over.
Okay then.
And obviously upgraded it with like the Game Boy Advance is what it can do that the Game Boy couldn't.
Yeah.
Obviously, and you had like additional stuff where you can go, gather the other Pokemon as well. So.
All right then.
It was you make sure you got plenty of things to do on there.
All right then.
Yeah. And then that came the Generation 4, which was on the original Nintendo DS. Again, another technological leap there. We've got the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl.
Okay then, that's the Pearl is the one that I'm currently running as well. Going back to one of the old games, so I'm a bit familiar with that. And I know Pearl does one way when you complete the game, you can go back and you're searching in the same locations, but you're able to find Pokemon from other generations within that.
Yeah,
within that
that
space.
was.
It's like a radar sort of thing.
I think that was introduced as a way to search for the older Pokemon because obviously you weren't able to transfer. Well, you were. You were able to transfer Pokemon from the GBA cartridges to the DS, which you couldn't do from the Game Boy to the GBA.
Yeah.
The technology just wasn't available to do that. But with this, you could. I mean, well, if you did that, you could only import them forwards. You couldn't say, I wanted to trade that back towards the GBA cartridge.
Yeah.
You had to do that.
Alright, so we've got we're up to 4th gen.
Yeah.
Did they have a sister game for that one?
They did indeed. It was in the form of Pokemon Platinum.
Okay then, yeah, I've heard of that one.
Which is probably, I think it's still considered like one of the highest selling games of the series so far.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which is surprising really for a sister game. You think the main games would outsell them, by a long shot, but no.
Yeah.
By this point, like the sister games didn't really offer all that much in terms of new features and stuff. But it's always still worth playing though.
Yeah.
Simply because they were just very fun games.
All
and
right.
girls, then we had the other remakes. We had the Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the remakes of the Generation 2 games, and these ones were probably the original Gold and Silver are still considered by many fans to be the Pokemon games. Like the most fun you will ever have with Pokemon games. And Heart Gold and Soul Silver probably just replicated that level of fun and probably magnified it by about a billion times over.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were probably still my favorite games. Heart Gold and Silver. They were just a ton of fun, especially back then in the original. They just made so many advancements compared to the original.
Yeah. So that's got up to Gen 5, is it? No, that's...
We're on Gen 5 now.
Yeah, so we're going on to Gen 5. We're on to Gen 5 now.
Yeah. We're on Generation 5 now with the release of Black and White.
Okay then.
This is where they decided we'll go back to the colours rather than keep naming them after jewels and stuff. Probably because they ran out of names. But
yeah.
This is where this was a lot of people were speculating that they were going to hold this one back for like the 3DS coming, which was coming out soon at the time. But no, these ones again were released on the DS, which was a surprising move. And again, they sold very well. Like I think a lot of Pokemon, all the Pokemon games, the main games for the generation, they do sell very, very well. And this ones were no different. And again, this is where it got cut off. They didn't have a sister game like the other ones did, because everyone kept there was a lot of rumours at the time going on. I was thinking, what's the sister game going to be? They were going to naturally say, well, that one's black and white. How about grey?
Grey, yeah.
That seemed like the obvious choice. But no, they actually had, for the first time, direct sequels.
Okay.
Direct sequels in the form of Black and White 2. Literally set 2 years after the plot line of...
Okay, well that's quite a change.
It was a very big change. It was a surprising move. And I think for the most part, it did well, like they normally do. Probably, I don't think it was received as well as Black and White was, but it was still high enough to, so they could say, we sold enough.
Yeah.
And then finally, that was it. We didn't get a remake that time around, but so this leads us to the current generation, Generation 6, with the release of X and Y.
Okay, then that one everybody know. I did catch Black and White. I never got to play them, and then X and Y is that's when they went 3D, didn't they?
Yeah, we're on the 3DS now.
Doing all of that. I mean, just 3D in the gameplay as well. I can't remember if they started it then or did they start it in Black and White, where they stopped with the top down.
Black and White sort of incorporated like 3D like elements. It wasn't truly 3D, but you can definitely tell they were trying to sort of build up towards implementing it fully.
Yeah.
You know, they sort of like had 3D like imagery. Like you, for example, say like you see like with most beat 'em up games these days, they're like 3D like characters on a two
on the 2D play,
so like 2.5D. Yeah. I think the principle was sort of the same there.
All right then. So yeah, so that's also all caught up. We know what's happening. So what's the newest one? There's one that you've been mentioning that I think it's a remake that's coming out.
Of the upcoming remakes, yeah, the Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby.
Okay, so they're gradually going through.
Yeah, the remakes of the third generation that's coming out soon, later this month.
All right then, so that's something that's coming up. It'll be interesting to see how those come out. We'll return to speaking about those later in this podcast. So Jessikya's been quite quiet this entire time.
Yeah.
But that's understandable, you know, we're just recapping what's happened with Pokemon. Everybody on the same level. We now know what we're talking about with reference to the games. So the next question is...
You speak for yourself.
The next question is obviously then, what games have we all played in the series?
Well, I can't really be thinking for fair answer because I played all of them up until this point. But like, I played all the main games for each generation, like Red, Blue, and Gold, Silver, all that.
Yeah.
I know I missed one or two sister games. I didn't play Yellow when it was originally out, but I sort of emulated that later on in later life, and never got around to playing Crystal fully. You know, I sort of started it, but didn't finish it up, so I don't really count that as playing. But for the most part, I did play all the games that were sort of released.
So which ones have you played then,
I've played Yellow, Ruby, and Pearl.
I think that's better than I've done. I think it was Red I played through on the Game Boy because
that was all that was available.
Where I came from, it's very difficult to get your hands on a system, so you tended to borrow a system from somebody. And I played Red on my cousin's system when they came to visit, and I got pretty far.
That's something people don't tend to do anymore. Could I borrow this game off you so I can enjoy it?
Yeah, so I did Red on my cousin's system for quite a bit, and I did a bit of Gold on my cousin's system, and then emulated it to properly finish the game, and that was one of the most fun games I've had. Saved my Master Ball for Lugia, I think it is, the level 70 one, because I had Gold, so that was the level 70 Pokemon.
The opposite one, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the level 70 Pokemon, and I just decided, look, I'm not going to be able to get a Mew with this Master Ball. I'm just going to save it for Lugia. The second
you weren't going to get a Mew anyway.
I know, because
it's still, even to this day, why can't I catch a Mew in like some specific area?
Yeah.
You're like, no, you've got to get it at some special event. It's like, fuck you.
Yeah, it's really, really annoying. But, so yeah, I ended up using it on Lugia. I didn't catch her in Gold, because at that point, I'd stocked up on Great Balls, because that's all you can use, and I had like 20 and I used them all up, and I was like,
you're that much of a cheapskate, you won't go buy Ultra Balls.
But no, I didn't have the selection at that point. I don't think you were able to buy them. But
I think they've always been there. I think in the original, that was all you get was either Pokeballs, Great Balls, and Ultra Balls, as far as I remember.
Yeah. But yeah, I gave it a good try, but couldn't do it. So I went past it. And then the most recent one of Jessikya's console I'm using, I'm going through on Pearl at the moment. I'm having good fun at that.
Right.
Because there's quite a few legendaries to catch, and some of them are sort of really easy. They're just like the one-off encounter things where you have to sort of keep throwing Pokeballs. Yeah. But there's one Azelf, I think it is, where you're having to run around the map all manner of madness.
Oh, the roaming Pokemon.
Yeah. I'm currently leveling up I think Ghastly is what I've got recently. I managed to catch one that was really high.
Ghastly.
I'm just going to do that sort of mean look, stop them from running away.
But that old trick, are you?
You're also supposedly able to catch the legendary bird Pokemon, and I've always wanted to catch them. So I'll be trying to catch them as well. But you have to use a mean look on them as well, because they run away as well. So
Just remember, if you encounter one of the beasts, you ain't gonna be able to use that trick. You're gonna look at me as a bitch. I'm gonna roar your ass out in this battle.
So yeah, I've got that sorting out. So I've covered quite a few of the generations, but there's definitely quite a few generations I haven't. But I have enjoyed Pokemon, and at some point I do want to do it a bit more.
Yeah.
So then you know, we've all enjoyed various Pokemon games. This is a bit more of a funny question. What do we think about the lore? What do we think about the lore as a group? I mean, Pokemon's got one of those ones where
it's got to the point where it's got its own mythology now.
Well, I mean, just the lore on the Pokemon themselves. I mean, take example of one like Drifloon. It's quite a cute balloon-looking Pokemon.
Balloons!
But it's got a lore. It tries to steal children. What?
Man, Pokemon be dark lately.
It's insane, Dak.
I have to admit that some of them aren't really child-friendly, but I guess I don't think many people read them, otherwise it wouldn't be a children's game.
I mean, it is quite funny, some of the ones I've seen.
It's surprising because Pokemon is a lot more darker, especially in Japan. Like with the original first movie came out, that was a much more darker concept than people realise.
I think you only realise it though when you grow up. Like as a kid, you're pretty naive to it, and then when you grow up, when you actually think about it more, and you go, "Wait, am I thinking this right? I never thought that as a kid." But
it's like that one that sort of covers its ears or something. It keeps its ears down because if it raised its ears, it's just really weird. It could like kill the entire world or something. So, and I've always sat and wondered, you know, only in the Pokemon universe would people be like, okay, this Tentacruel is supposed to be absolutely massive and can destroy a city. This can destroy a city block. Let's give it to a kid. It's just
the concept of it did sound ridiculous even from the start. Like you always had it where kids can come out and become Pokemon trainers, so scouring the world. How old do you have to be to do that? Oh, you'd have to be 10. 10!
It's like, Mom, I'm going all across the world to capture these creatures and run around in bushes and fight absolutely gigantic 50-foot tall creatures.
Yeah.
It's fine.
The probability of me dying is extremely high, no, but don't worry, I'll be back.
Not really, because actually no, I can't say that because Pokemon have tried to attack humans before, so I can't say that. But I don't think there is a chance of it ever happening in a game that there's actually direct combat because.
That'd be an interesting feature. They'd have in there actual death. Game over. You lose.
That would be freaky. I think it's one of those things where Pokemon's built up this wonderful universe where it's the only universe that this could happen.
Yeah.
And you get those sort of things. Which universe would you like to live in? I'd like to live in Pokemon's universe. There's no real fear of death. You get a permanent friend pet of your choosing that could be all sorts of really cool, epic creatures.
I just think about it, yeah.
You don't really have to work. There's like 10-year-old kids giving you thousands of dollars. You pretty much everybody has a house.
We battle each other, and I can rake in the money.
The question is, which Pokemon would you always have by your side? That's a stupid one because I already know the answer.
I'd have Mew.
You'd have Mew, you big Jessie.
The thing is, Mew's awesome. You could he predicts everybody, so there's no sort of, is Mew okay? I'm a bit worried. No, Mew's always okay. He's got teleport and reads everything's mind.
But any other psychic Pokemon has that.
Yeah, but he doesn't have teleport. Mew. I got this really brilliant impression of Mew from, I think it's the first movie or something where they introduced Mewtwo. And they sort of he's following Team Rocket as they're breaking into this place. And every time Team Rocket turned their heads, he's teleporting behind them. So they could never see him. And that was sort of my impression of Mew. Mew is just that epic. The reason nobody's seen him, he's been there. But he just teleports in a position that nobody could ever see him in. But he's flying around in cities and stuff. This is an epic Pokemon. This is beyond your god tier bosses. This is a Pokemon that sort of sat in the middle of a cafe having a drink of tea. And nobody's seeing him. Because every time they could see him, he's I'm going to just move here, I'm going to move there, I'm going to move there.
You can imagine that Mew sitting in a calf, they're going to say, Mew.
What about your Pokemon then?
What would
do
be
you
your
have?
Pokemon of choice?
Oh, my favourite. That'd be my
In the 4 dragon type.
No, my favourite's not actually a dragon, although dragons are my favourite type to use. My favourite one is actually an Aggron from Generation 3.
Aggron?
Yeah, I don't know if you're not familiar with that
I've
one.
never come across him. No, I don't think so.
He's a really monster of a beast.
Let's look this beast up.
Oh really? Yeah, you're gonna do that. You're gonna cheat your way, aren't
Aggron, is that how it's spelled?
you? EGGRON.
Are we gonna put a link to this?
I don't think that'll be necessary.
EGG
No, it's an A. You can't even listen properly.
AGGRON.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's him there.
Oh yeah, he is quite the badass.
Yeah.
Yep. I can agree.
Oh, yeah.
Is he like one of the steel ones or something?
He's part steel, yeah, but he's actually a rock type as his primary one, but he's got part steel then. He's got a new mega form as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I can agree with that. What about you, Jessikyaa? What's your favourite?
Togepi.
Togepi.
Typical.
Mainly from the anime series with Misty and Togepi.
Ah, yeah.
I always loved that.
Lame.
Yeah.
Not lame. It's so cute.
That's why it's lame.
And they
Pokemon aren't
get
supposed to be cute.
on so well with Pikachu. They'll just eat like Pokemon.
If you say Pikachu's your favourite, I'm leaving.
No, Togepi is my favourite. Pikachu, I like Pokemon Yellow just because Pikachu followed you.
But you could get Pikachu to follow you in Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
I haven't played
Can you?
those ones.
You can.
in Pearl, there's only like one zone where you can have them.
I don't know why they brought it back for that one. You know, they had the feature where the Pokemon follow you.
Mm.
Pikachu can only do that in Yellow, obviously, but they had it so that any Pokemon could follow you in Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
Oh, that would be adorable.
Any Pokemon, even if you could have like a flipping massive Gyarados following you behind there.
Yeah, there was.
That wouldn't scare anybody.
In Pearl, there's one guy complaining that there's only certain Pokemon that can follow. He's like,
Yeah, only
but
certain
I want my Gyarados to go walking.
Yeah,
with me."
and it's only
It's
certain Pokemon
in
can do that.
they're like Pokemon parks, aren't they?
Yeah.
But they only admit cute Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'd be alright then?
Oh, is Togepi class?
No,
as cute?
Togepi's not on the list. Only.
Oh no, because it's a baby
no.
Pokemon.
Yeah.
Is Togepi even in the game?
Of course it is. It's
I
a
don't
baby Pokemon.
No, but is it in?
I don't
No,
think
this
that's-
was classes. It's a classified as a baby Pokemon.
But is it in Pearl?
I don't.
Yeah.
I think.
You get an egg of it.
Yeah, I think you can get Togepi at the end. Because at the end of it, once you beat the Elite Four, you get like a special radar thing that lets you find the older generation Pokemon. Because I want to get a Gardevoir in that game, but it's from the 3rd gen, I think. So you can't capture it.
I am going to steal that game off you when you complete it. And put it down.
Alright then, so speaking about the Pokemon lore.
Yeah, we've been
and
talking
everything.
about that already.
Yeah.
This whole conversation has been about Pokemon.
Yeah. So, but speaking about that, specifically, sort of looking at the Pokemon themselves, there's always this whole thing, and I had it a bit for some of the more the released Pokemon when they bring out thing, is this idea that the newer Pokemon are worse than the older Pokemon.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a bit of an elitism. I got it a bit more sort of like in the 3rd gen, 4th gen, when some of the Pokemon looked a bit ridiculous. They've gotten a bit better now.
Mm-hmm.
But what is everybody's thoughts on this idea that the newer Pokemon are worse, sort of visually at least, from the older ones? Jessikyaa.
They're not too bad. But it's always with Pokemon, sometimes you can tell what two animals they've just mashed together. Even by the names, it's like, is it like Giraffic? I know it's a giraffe. It looks like a giraffe. It's got giraffe in its name. But that is an adorable Pokemon, so I'm not putting that down.
Yeah.
I guess, without comparing it to the originals, I guess, because I still don't know all of those. You're pretty epic if you can name them all.
I think for me it's there's a few that stood out. As I said, sort of the 3rd and 4th generation was starting to take the piss a bit. You could see sort of they were recycling it, like Starly just looks like an emo version of Pidgey. So you know,
But Starly was actually more usable.
oh yeah, Pidgey always ended. Anyway,
That's where it looks so familiar.
yeah, it is. It is
Pidgey.
quite similar to the thing. I mean, so much so that there's most generations have that bird type, and somebody sort of postulated a site online where they were looking at all the different bird types, and
Yeah.
sort of correlating them and connecting them.
It was a running thing that you always had to have the bird type at the start of the game. You had the Pidgey, and then you had the Starleaf and such. Yeah, so it was always there.
But there's I can't remember if it's the newest one, but they were like the ones that are like 2 ice cream cones and stuff. Some of them got a bit ridiculous.
Oh god, yeah, ice cream cones. Yeah, we got Pokemon full of ice cream.
If you can actually find images where it does show you what animals they got it from. Like there's one that looks like one of these Japanese fish things, and it's like a mudkip or something. Although there is one closer than the mudkip to that one. I'm pretty sure there is. But I guess if that's how they make Pokemon, that's how they make Pokemon.
As far as I can tell, they do use sort of real life stuff. But I think the 3rd and 4th gen, they started to get a bit crazy.
Yeah.
But even in the 1st gen, you had some really weird ones. Like Oddish was kind of really weird.
So basically, in answering your question...
Diglett!
Yes. So basically, in answering your question, there have been like some silly design, but questionable ones. You think, why would they design that? That's been in every generation. Like, I don't know, for example, the first one was sort of less because it was new at the time.
Yeah.
But you could still, but if you look back on them, there are some ones you do question. Like, for example, like a Volt Orb. It's just like, that's just it's a Pokeball.
Yeah.
What the hell? Or maybe like as a Magnemite, it's just a big floating magnet.
Yeah.
That's all it is. But the later ones were definitely a lot worse. And like I think it's in the 5th generation where one of them was called Trubbish. It's just literally a bag of rubbish.
Aww.
That's it. It was like, really, is that really the best you can come up with?
Muck has gone to great depths.
But that again, that's another one. You look back at it, you do question. It's a pile of slime.
I guess when you read the lore with it, though, I guess the lore might give a bit more into the.
Not really. They'll just say on that rubbish. They'll say this Pokemon was modeled after a bag of rubbish.
Yeah.
Oh.
And there's Tangela is the weird one that a lot of people forget from the 1st gen.
Oh.
It's just a tangle of vines. And if you're looking at sort of like the ones like Trubbish, it is one of just those weird ones. It's a knotted, tangly ball of vines, and that's all you can see.
It's all bagged up and ready to go instead of what you
So yeah, I think there's always been weird ones, and as you said, because the 1st gen is the start of it all, we're sort of using. We were
more forgiving at the time.
Yeah, it's sort of the benchmark. So we forget things like Tangela and Muck and Grimer, because those sort of become what we expect Pokemon to look like.
Yeah.
And then we sort of compare it to. To be fair, Muck and Grimer are just piles of sludge.
Pretty much.
But we accept that as okay, but we don't accept a bag of rubbish.
I guess it's more novel for the kids. Like, I know that older generations play the games, but there's also younger people who get introduced to it, and they'll find it a bit funny. Oh, look, I'm playing with a bag of rubbish. Don't do that, kids.
Yeah, don't play with the bag of rubbish.
I think when it came to people to Pokemon like rubbish, it was like by this point, fan standards have had changed. That they were thinking, we know you can do better than this. This just looks weak.
Yeah.
You're expecting them to give out something a bit more creative at this point.
Yeah.
But that's also a problem with Pokemon. You can I think it's around, in my opinion, it was around at least Diamond and Pearl, where you could tell the creativity is beginning to wear out. They are beginning to run out of ideas. Like, an example would be when they went back and gave like some of the older Pokemon, like for example, like Magmar, Electabuzz, even Tangela. They went back and gave them 3rd stage evolutions. They actually
wow.
Yeah, they actually
Tangela. I couldn't even imagine what Tangela could become as a 2nd stage.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. That he's a 2nd evolution is what I mean. So you have like from the Magmar, you have like Maggie, so the baby Magmar, which will evolve as Magmar. They eventually get it just a Magmar. It's like, no, that's which by the way, Magmar sucks. I always preferred Magmar. You look much more cooler in design. Yeah,
I never got into the whole baby Pokemon thing. I always found it kind of made sense having the Pikachus, the 1st stage ones, because you pick those up at the start.
Yeah.
But then you only get the babies after you get your 2nd evolution, sort of thing, for most of your team.
You can only get the Pikachu ones when you breed Pikachus. You can't catch it normally.
In Pearl, you can get Pichu.
You can?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
In Pearl, you can catch them.
See that you're more of an expert than I am now.
You also get an egg in that game where you carry it around and then you get a baby.
I'm trying
that's
to get
Togepi, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's not Togepi. I've hatched it. I don't think it was. I've hatched it, and if it was Togepi, I probably would have tried harder when I got stuck. But I don't think it was.
Oh, no, Pearl was a nightmare to unstick. But anyway, sidestepping that, that's I think the newer Pokemon, as you said, might be starting to get a bit worn out on the ideas.
Some of them are, but it can be in the reverse that some of the newer ones are just can be if not even better than some of the old ones.
I'm liking some of the more powerful ones, you know.
Yeah, some
you
of
get
them
you get a few that look odd, but then sort of like the dragon types are definitely starting to get a bit more on the cool side. I'm spotting quite a few more that I just find cool, and the more armored sort of Pokemon start coming up, and I do like to see those.
Especially when they evolve as well, they get more armored. A bit like Squirtle when he evolved, and then you get the similar thing with the penguin type in Pearl.
I've
got
that penguin
type. I've never heard of that.
Empoleon. It is done as a penguin type Pokemon, if I remember right. But
it's a species, the penguin Pokemon.
It looks like a penguin.
But yeah, that one I was very impressed on, because it starts off like a big cuddly penguin, and then it sort of gets its hammer, and it's really
a very
badass.
big, ugly looking penguin.
But I mean, the thing is, you could have gone a lot of ways with the idea of a penguin evolving, but they went for a really nice armoured look, and I have to admit that comes off very well.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I admit that. You did get the ones that became very popular, such as Lucario. He himself was not only went down very well in terms of his appearance, but he was very powerful. He was one that used a lot in the meta games and the world tournaments and stuff. And a lot of Pokemon went through that in other generations, such as Heracross back in Gold and Silver and such like that, and probably like Salamence and Metagross in the third generation.
So there's definitely quite a few that are still usable, and there's a lot of models that are still coming out as good.
And there are also going to be ones where people are like, I don't care even if it wasn't that great. It still looks cool.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you mentioned with the Pidgey. I just went with Pidgey because the only other option was Sparrow, and Pharaoh looked absolutely horrendous. But I did enjoy. Yeah, I did enjoy playing with Pidgey. So there's a bit of that, but also there's always a need to sort of pad. So they'll always have odd Pokemon in there to pad, and you're never going to play them. They're not particularly viable. Like Bidoof in Pearl. Everybody hates Bidoof.
Yeah.
But he's so
cute.
But even some of them can have their uses, like Bidoof as well. When that was this
early game, I just taught him all the HMs. I couldn't teach him.
Well, there you go. Then that's still a use. He was known for being what they dubbed a HM slave. You can just teach him all the HMs you need.
I used to do that Sandslash.
Yeah, so that way you can only carry. You only need to carry one, because sometimes you'd have to carry have to have two because that one can't learn.
Yeah.
Such and such. But he was always useful for carrying all the HM moves you need. So even they still have their uses if used correctly. Such as even for example, on the X and Y game when I was playing, even Gloom, the oldest evolution had its use because he used a sweet scent move, which was useful for attracting wild Pokemon, to raise and stuff. So they do have their uses if you think about it.
All right then. So, I mean, you spoke about the graphical upgrades as the generations came on. So then, what are your thoughts? Specifically, you've had a lot of exposure to the games as they've gone up. Kaiser Dragon. What are your thoughts on how the game has progressed based on the graphics? How they've taken advantage of new graphics? Sort of thing. It's
always looked, obviously, anytime you're going to get visual upgrades, it's always going to look impressive. And the Pokemon, always again would work in general because it's always maintained a very cartoony look. It's never looked trying to aim for realism. And as the technology increased, it's sort of been reflected upon its environments. Like every generation, it always looked like much more futuristic and much more advanced civilization. Like the latest, such as the black and white ones, you had automatic sliding doors and stuff like. With the other ones, it looked like you had to manual them openly and stuff. Openly manual them. I've got to get my words out. But yeah, it's reflected upon the environments and stuff. But in terms of gameplay, it's always been like the central core has always remained pretty much unchanged, and they just sort of had different ways to go about it. But that's not to say it's all been positives. They have made some mistakes in the past. Like for example, a very popular feature which was featured at the time was the in Gold and Silver, they had the mobile phone. You actually had your own cell phone, you know.
Oh, yeah,
number trains. I'll have your number. And they took that away when it came to Ruby and Sapphire, which was something people hated. They did not like that. I don't know what it was about. It's, you know, you just you carry on your mobile phone. It's like, they're like, hey, do you want to have a battle? Yeah, yo. Like that. It's just quality. But they did bring it back when they remade them. So, and they've always had something similar to that. So they do learn from whatever doesn't work. They will learn and, you know, adapt it in different ways.
Yeah.
And obviously, as each generation passes, they've always introduced new ideas and new things to keep them going. Because that was always a major problem with the Pokemon games. Is that once you've beaten like the Elite Four and you've done the main story, there's nothing more to do.
Yeah.
That was always an issue. Like noticeably in the very first ones, once you've done it, it's like apart from going out and capturing the Pokemon, that's it. You know, you're just stuck.
Well, that's something I'm looking forward to in Pearl. Is with this radar thing, I can go and look for the third gen, and I can actually complete
give you
the
more
team
options
that I want
to search for Pokemon. But it's not just that; they give you like a few side events and stuff, like maybe like the odd mini game or two. And
yeah,
I noticed that they've done it a lot with the legendary Pokemon. As legendaries increase, they've always had different ways you can go out and catch them. Like they're almost trying to find the legendaries in itself is becoming a side mission and stuff, which was notable. For example, in Ruby and Sapphire, I remember the trio in that, the Golem trio. There was, when I was playing it back in school many years ago. Don't I feel old? But trying to find them in itself was like a riddle in itself, because each one required a different approach to do it. Like when you find them in the caves, you have to think. You had to really know how to do it, because you wouldn't want to just stumble across.
Yeah. What about you, Jessikyaa? How have you've played a couple of the games? So what did you think about how the game progressed over time? Did you think sort of it got better, or have you thought it's gotten worse?
Graphically, there wasn't that much difference in the style, but then looking at X and Y, which I've seen a little bit of, it's kind of strange how you go from these little pixels to actually 3D characters actually moving in front of you in tall buildings. Like, wait, there's depth. Why?
Yeah, just
and then actually being able to pet your Pokemon as well was a bit of a strange concept. It sounds cute, but
definitely trying to make you interact more with your Pokemon.
Yeah, I guess that's a good idea, but then I always get sad anyway if one of my Pokemon gets hurt or paralyzed or dies. So. Well,
wait, your Pokemon dies?
Knocked out.
I was going to say, I've never had my Pokemon die.
Jess can make anything die, let's be fair.
Hey!
You should know all about that, wouldn't you?
I revived those plants.
Right, but no. Paul's done something weird where you can use the DS pointer to click on your Pokemon. I haven't quite figured out what it's trying to do with that.
You get a little device, don't you, when your Pokemon go across the screen and you click them and they make noises. Yeah. I think that's more just novelty, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it is. It's just really weird.
I also think it's to see how much they love you, because if you use them so often, or if you get them hurt too often, they don't like it or whatever.
Interactivity, this is one of the things. I can see why they try to do it in Pokemon, but I don't really need that.
Going back to a topic, I want to go back to a topic we touched upon earlier about.
Yeah.
Is Pokemon actually a lot darker than it looks? And to be honest, it is. A prime example of that would be in the first game. Would be in Lavender Town. You got the whole tower there. That's basically.
Pearl has it as well. It's the burial tower.
Yeah, they've all got it, yes. But Lavender Town, you know, they made it first. But
snap, 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 Dairy. Somebody's getting sassy here.
But the point is, you know, you're going there, you're mourning the loss of the dead. You know, you actually, the concept of dead Pokemon is there. It's like, hang on a minute, this is a children's game. Should they really be addressing death here in a Pokemon game?
The whole concept of the game, though. I mean, you're catching
Pokemon. The Pokemon.
That's where we're going wrong. I've been catching Pokemon.
I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, yeah, I guess in like the Pokemon world. I mean, it makes more sense in the anime series, because you see the whole, I love that wild Pokemon because it's my friend, because they're Pokemon. But then, like, in the games.
It's something that a lot
without cutscenes, which I don't think we want in Pokemon. Please, no cutscenes.
Yeah,
we've gone long enough without them. We'll be fine.
It's something that a lot of people have criticised about being the big critics and stuff, like religious, because Pokemon has been for many years have been a big target of for religious leaders and such thing, and it promotes a bad imagery towards their religion, like Christianity and stuff. Like, just as an example, there's probably other religions that have been influenced by it as well. They got like the concept of these children are going around literally capturing these demonic, sometimes demonic beasts.
Yeah.
Just going around there that cause havoc, and all they do is just sending out there to fight each other. It's like if you imagine two trainers throwing out two Houndooms like that would the imagery there would just look ravaged. Like this, is just like a reflection of real life. If you had like two people getting turned into dogfights here.
Yeah, but this the thing is as I said before with Pokemon World, whenever they've got sort of that choose what world you want to be in. Pokemon only works within the Pokemon world. The Pokemon world, it feels a lot more like a computer game than anything else.
Yeah.
Any fantasy world that I've ever seen. The whole layout this is completely improbable. So you end up judging it on the setup that it shows you. They're saying these are the limits of the world. So when you 10-year-old kid, 9-year-old kid going off into the world, you sort of accept that because you can already see from the start this is a completely different world to what we've got.
You can acknowledge that.
And you just end up accepting the rules that
the
the world gives
revolves basically around these Pokemon. I mean, you walk into someone else's house and they're sat with this Pokemon, and it's like the world is Pokemon. There is not much else but humans and Pokemon.
Yeah.
It's definitely a one fantasy situation where reality does not play in it.
Yeah,
whatsoever.
the second you start clicking it into humanity, you've got animal abuse, you've got potential child endangerment, you've got people endangerment, you've got terrorism.
Terrorism, murder, and stuff.
Groups like Team Rocket. I mean,
the
Team Galactic, who's blowing up an entire lake.
There you go. Then
It would be a police situation, but there's no police involved, and it only works when you're within that game universe. It doesn't work once you get out of the game universe. Once you're trying to play.
So I think overall it is still a children's game. It's still lighthearted and stuff, but it does have like these dark elements that you do. When you do really think about it, you do question them. But I think they don't detract it in any way.
I guess naivety does play with it, because when you were a kid, you never thought, catching Pokemon and making them fight. What? You always thought, I'm going on an adventure and I'm going to catch all of them. You want to be like Ash, trying to get them all and beat everyone, or whoever it is in the news.
The very best.
Like no one ever was.
No, boys, no. Save it for another video.
But yeah,
some things little boys never grow out of.
I think it's one of those where I like it's Puritan. I like that it's nice and pure.
Yeah.
And it maintains a sort of ideology that it's very idealistic. And it's one I think that they include those dark bits for just to remind kids to be cautious at the end of the day. That something that might look cute and cuddly does have that negative side, but they do it in a very subtle way, so it doesn't destroy the universe.
I don't see how showing the kids like the graves of the Pokemon is subtle.
You get the graves, but then from there's no real connection between the Pokemon you have and the chance to go into the grave. They never sort of explain how these Pokemon die.
No.
So you do get this sort of. It doesn't break the idea that everything's safe and everything's fine.
I was going to say, mind you, they did in one instance, like in the original Red and Blue. I think they didn't outright tell you, but it's one of those things. You put two and two together, you come up with 5 in my case. But when you had there was a situation where at the top of the Lavender Tower it was haunted by the ghost of a Marowak, which they said like Team Rocket essentially killed a Marowak.
Yeah.
And it's just like they pretty much out with it, not in so many words, but they just say like this Cubone in the town is all his own because he lost his mother Marowak. Just say that Team Rocket pretty much beat it to death.
Yeah.
I was like, Flipping out.
But again, it's because
But that's what.
But again, I think they got away with it because you don't see that happening.
The thing is, sometimes that's a subtlety that works. It's a subtlety that reminds kids that you still have to be cautious.
Yeah.
But it's not destroying. I think a lot of more modern kids stuff tends to go too outright on it. They'll have just a moment where the kids actually sort of pulled out of the fantasy to realize it's reality, instead of sort of having the reality tell you these stories. So I think that might be, and I'm no expert on Pokemon lore, but it might be sort of a subtle way for them to just remind you as you're playing the game, to be careful. Like Drifloon supposedly whisking children away.
You ain't gonna let that one go, are you?
I sat and read it and I was like, oh my god. But it is sort of like that sort of thing. Kids see balloon Pokemon is absolutely awesome, and it's just that reminder to always be cautious that these things are
yeah.
I guess there might be little morals in there, like, look after your pets, if your dog is like Pikachu to you, like his to Ash, just look after him.
Yeah, because there is the possibility of death. It does exist, but we're not going to make a tangible connection. You don't have to worry about your Pokemon dying, but just remember that it can happen, so always be careful with these things.
There's got morals behind all Pokemon, so take care of your pets. The more you catch, the more you're going to have to... It's more expensive it is going to be able to feed the little shit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, with all those thousands of pounds you get
if you fail to defeat the opposing trainer's Pokemon, I'll have you put down.
No.
Oh no, you just pop it in the computer and just leave it there and it's Pokemon.
Just dump it in the PC.
Are you going to choose me again?
Just dump it in the PC. All my affection for you will decrease to 0.
So it's one of those where it really does. It works so long as you realise that it's playing by its own rules. The second you try and make it play by the real world's rules, it becomes horrible. So, we've had a nice discussion about the different
I think
Pokemon.
We've touched upon that in that thing.
Here's one that pops up quite a lot. Anybody will ask this. Perfect Pokemon team.
Oh
I'm not gonna make you reach 6. But what when you play Pokemon, is there any sort of core team you make? Is there any sort of Pokemon you always want to have in your team? We'll start with Jessikyaa.
Oh, let's hear this.
Well, as a joke, I would say just put all Magikarp in there, but you probably won't get anywhere.
Somebody's father loves her.
That is epic. An all Magikarp team. Unbeatable. I am the motherfucking boss.
I mean, I don't know what level you have to get a Magikarp until he actually does any damage, but just imagine you're like, I'm unbeatable.
He does get a damaging move at level 15.
Does he?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, he gets the tackle at 15 and he gets flail at 30.
Yeah.
So at the very least, you have a very strong Magikarp. I'm gonna flail about at you.
There's the
fear my fucking splash.
Yeah.
It is epic.
But yeah, I mean, there's that one trainer that comes up and my father was really nice and he gave me this epic Pokemon. It's a Magikarp, and you always see it come up. Your father didn't love you. But anyway,
on a serious note, I would say, how many types is there?
At the moment, I think it's about. I think it's 18. I think it's 18 types.
Well, you're not gonna fit every type in there, but I'd say I always try to have maybe a water type, a fire type, a electric, lightning type, an earth type, something cute and cuddly, and then probably one of the starting Pokemon, which was probably also chosen on its cuteness.
Yeah.
So I kind of like to have a variety, unless I've seen like a bird type or an insect type and go, I want one of those. But usually I try and have one. So
you tend to go for, apart from a selection process, so you try and
diverse team.
Yeah, you try and have
a diverse. It just sounds like you choose Pokemon based on their appearance.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
No, because.
It's not a big problem doing that. Some trainers I know tend to do that.
That's fine.
There's plenty of sort of cute, like Pikachu. It's one that always pops up, but it's actually not a bad Pokemon to have when you're going through the game. It's a fairly strong electric Pokemon. You have to take it to Raichu. There's no doubt about that. But it's a fairly strong Pokemon throughout the game.
You don't have to evolve them.
I know you don't, but I'm just saying that choosing.
Why wouldn't you?
Choosing on cuteness isn't such a bad thing.
I suppose if you want to do like the Pokemon contest in the early ones.
I guess everyone, does it, because when you first see a Pokemon, you don't have much to go on apart from the moves it does on you, its health, its gender, which makes no difference, unless it's one of those little Rhino types where they change colour and it's adorable. But you've really just got the appearance. That's the first thing you see, and its name. and sometimes they have terrible names. Sometimes.
Well, what about
but...
you, Kaiser? What's your dream team then? Any specific Pokemon, or do you just sort of go with the flow like Jess?
Is it like all Magikarp with dragon DNA?
Nah, my Pokemon would be you would kick Magikarp's ass. It would eat them for dinner.
So what's your dream team then?
It really all goes on your overall strategy, because Pokemon isn't just. There's a lot more strategy to it than it meets the eye, because it really goes on what you want to do with them. And obviously some trainers use like specific types. Need like for some reason, like myself, I'm starting up, an all dragon type team for Pokemon page that I'm doing. So that plays a part in it. But again, strategy is the main thing. For example, some trainers might have it so that you want to, defeat them with poison, like poison as much as you can, do them based on damage and stuff like that. So slowly draining them, like wall breakers and stuff like that, or all out attacks and hazard setups. So it really goes on.
As you're leveling, what sort of team do you? Because I know you do competitive play of Pokemon.
That's for competitive. For
actually playing the main story. What sort of team do you build up? What's the team that you aim to have?
Generally, I think for when you're trying to get through the main game, like for the Elite Four and stuff, I always find it's best, to try and always stick with a balanced team. You never try to have one overcompensate for another.
Yeah. So
like for a balanced one, you probably would have like, depending on who your starter is, your starter is always going to be like either a grass or fire or water.
Well, let's say that you can choose a Pokemon from any gen. What sort of team would you build? What sort of Pokemon have you then picked? And what are your favourite Pokemon?
You're not going to let me finish this question here. All right. What was the question? You're not listening.
The thing is, you're going sort of more general, but I just wanted to get an idea of what Pokemon you'd like to have in your team in particular. So sort of your favourite Pokemon for a team, as opposed to sort of general team building.
I suppose I would be a mix of some of my favourites, because some of my favourites are generally considered like some of the stronger ones, and just generally ones that perform well. Like if I had to pick some, I would probably like have Agron there for like his mega form. He got a huge boost in in usability with that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily use it competitively, but maybe just for fun.
Yeah.
For the most part, I think I would probably stick to around dragons actually. Like some of the most usable ones are dragons such as Dragonite and Garchomp and such like. But or maybe something like a combination between dragons and grounds. I found grounds to be some of the most effective to use offense wise, like Excadrill and even and such like that. But every type always has at least one or two Pokemon that is very usable. It really all goes, so at the end of the day, it all goes on sometimes your favourites, which look, any Pokemon can be useful in any way, as I said earlier. So personal preference is probably the best way to do it sometimes. Yeah.
Well, for me, every time I play Pokemon, I tend to go for bird type. So if Pidgey's around, I tend to favour getting Pidgey.
Yeah.
I just like Pidgey visually as a bird type. He's fairly strong sort of personality in my team.
Yeah.
Then you've always got the starter. I tend to favour the fire starter. Like in Gold, I went for the fire starter. But
except for in Pearl.
Well, yeah, in Pearl, I didn't fancy the fire starter, so I went for the water starter.
I do not like buggies.
But generally I try and have Gyarados in my team, but because I went with the water starter, I've done something slightly different in Pearl. But normally it's Gyarados, Sandshrew I try and get in my team for Sand Slash, because he's a fairly strong ground. Then the Pidgey I get for the fly. Trying to think, and then I get sort of a fire starter or a fire Pokemon. At the moment in Pearl I've got Ponyta doing that, because I managed to land a shiny Ponyta really early on in the game. I was like, hey, when it's blue fire, you kind of stick with that badass, okay? I landed a shiny one and I caught that bastard.
There's no way.
Electric, I don't think I used to really have electric in my team, but Shinx appeared in
I found him to be very useful.
Adorable.
Because he's part darkness, and this is what I found. He's
not a part darkness.
He learned some darkness moves, and that sort of.
He just learned a few dark techniques. Like a lot of Pokemon learn techniques that aren't not necessarily they're of the same type, but
Yeah.
Probably sort of to cover the variety in terms of weaknesses.
So and then I try and go for a dragon type. So it's either Gyarados.
Gyarados is not a dragon. It only looks like one.
It
should have been a dragon.
He was in Gold. He was able to get Hyper Beam, which is a fairly strong thing. But
a lot of Pokemon, that's a normal move.
I know, but back then it was.
No. I think you meant later on he got Dragon Rage.
Oh yeah, no, whatever.
I think that's what you were getting at.
It's been ages since I've played Gyarados. I've been fighting Gyaradoses, but generally try and get a Dragon one, and I went from Dragoneer, but I don't think I could evolve him into Dragon Knight. I think you had to do something funny.
No, that was a level based one. You had to evolve him at level 55. It just took forever.
Yeah, I never got him up to that.
That was one drawback with using dragons. They take a long time to raise.
So I tend to favour dragons. Try and get a dragon in my team. Dragoneer is my favourite. I tried to find a new dragon type in the new one, but there weren't very many dragon types to choose from.
The Gible and Gible, which evolves into Garchomp, was definitely worth, because that's Garchomp today is probably still recommended as the best one.
I tend to go a bit on the visual. So I was trying, they brought out the new ice type, and I was like, okay, I want to try and get an ice Pokemon. Right. And I couldn't find any ice Pokemon I liked. But it turned out Empoleon can learn some ice techniques. So I was like, I can cover. I can cover ice with Empoleon.
So obviously Jessica prefers like the ones that are cutesy.
No. There are some which are pretty cool. It's just that.
That's your personal preference.
I like cute stuff.
Yeah. It's not a problem. Ultimately, what I want to do with my Pearl team, because I can go back and catch them, is I want to get, for Ice type, I want to have Articuno.
Right.
Then I'm going to use...
You want to use a legendary?
Yes, because Articuno has always been my favourite.
Boo, you don't use legendaries, no.
I've got for the dragon, I've got the dragon type from Pearl, the boss dragon dude, I call him.
The boss dragon type?
Yeah, Palinka or something.
Oh, Palika, yeah.
Yeah, Palika. I've gone with him for my dragon type. And then for the bird type, I've got Stal. Yeah, I know. I've got I didn't have much of a choice. I'm playing Pearl.
No.
But I've got Starly's full evolution as my bird type.
Yeah.
And then I've got Empoleon as the water type is what I'm using him for.
So you sort of try to go for a sort of a balance as well, do you?
Yeah. And I do try and have a psychic. And my favourite psychic is having Abra. Because
the Alakazam,
Abra I always call Spoon Man because of the spoons.
Oh, that's real original.
Yeah, I always call him Spoon Man. It was a hilarious joke for me. But in this game, I can't have it. I tried to catch an Abra, I couldn't, so I went for the legendary Psychic. But I'm still thinking of going back and trying getting an Abra, because the legendary Psychic's just a bit weak physically, and I found that the Kadabra, because I was never able to trade with anybody.
Yeah.
So at least Kadabra is fairly strong on the defensive wise and quite strong on the offense.
Right.
So I might end up going and leveling all that. But those are sort of the main ones. I would like to have a Sandshrew. If I can get them, is sort of Articuno, Sandshrew, any of the starter Pokemon, preferably the fire type, and then maybe a Gyarados or one of the newer dragon type ones.
Yeah.
And then my psychic Pokemon just has to be Kadabra, because I like that chain that just looks so cool.
Yeah. So you have like a few philosophies with your team building. Sometimes you favour some that are on appearance, balance, and depending on what they can do.
Yeah, I like to have a pretty team, but sometimes you have to.
Pokemon are so sparkly.
It's Pokemon that I find visually appealing, and that doesn't mean that they're going to be the cutest team.
Some of them can just be ponies.
Yeah, but again, I decided on Ponyta, and I decided on having the fire type because it was a shiny Pokemon, and I just decided, look, it's the first shiny I've caught, I might as well play with it.
I suppose so.
And it's got its weaknesses. I have to admit, it's not the strongest, and I had this problem last time when I was playing the fire type. Its fire type tends to have a lot more weaknesses than it has strength. You don't encounter as many leaf types. Whereas when you've got water, you encounter a lot more water and ground type Pokemon, so you always have a bit more strength. Yeah. So I've been finding my water type starter being much more effective in Pool than it was before.
I just find having a balance when you, especially go up against the gym leaders, if you're not clued in on what is weak to and strong to that, you kind of go, I've got this, and this in my team. Which one's gonna work? That one will do because it's working. Done. Unless you're just gonna use pound and all that stuff, and then it's fine.
Pearl, I had to have there's like a little table that showed all the weaknesses and resistance. The only way to keep track of this thing. But anyway, we've had a chat about the perfect team, and definitely from Kaiser you got a good breakdown of the competitive strengths and weaknesses that abound, and there's a lot of variety depending on what generation you're in, but we all do have our favourite sort of types that we go for.
Yeah.
So the last thing is, as I said, we'll get back to the Ruby and Sapphire, and now we're back to it. The newest games, Ruby and Sapphire, are coming out, and I haven't heard too much about it, but we'll also have a talk with Kaiser about the idea of Ruby and Sapphire specifically, and then we'll chip in with our ideas of the remakes, the idea of having remakes and whatnot. So let's start with your ideas on the actual remake involved, Ruby and Sapphire. What do you think about this remake? Do you think it's a good thing? Are you excited for it?
I am actually, yeah. Just Ruby and Sapphire was one of my favourites to play. I definitely had a lot of fun, but by that point I was definitely really getting into Pokemon a lot then. I played like the older ones beforehand. They were really enjoyed it. But it might have been Ruby and Sapphire where I started to really sort of cement myself as a big Pokemon fan. So, it's strange because generally I'm sort of against remakes and stuff, but for some reason Pokemon seems to be one of the few franchises that can do it well, and that's always a good thing. So it says to me, like, even at this point, it's one of it follows that if it's not broke, don't fix it pattern.
Yeah.
And definitely isn't broken, especially after all these years. So.
Yeah. Your thoughts on the idea of remakes, or if you're familiar with these particular remakes?
Because they were quite older games anyway, where, like modern games, we'll just patch it for you, it's fine. It's good to have remakes to fix any bugs, but also you get remakes that are just HD, like Final Fantasy X, so I don't think it's a bad thing, and it also gives people a chance to play it on the newer consoles rather than going, oh, now I have to find my old Game Boy or buy one. Now they have a chance to either play them for the first time or replay them and get that nostalgia back.
Yeah, I think the general idea of remakes is quite good, especially when you get a lot of the really old games. Well, the problem is some companies do remakes badly and some do remakes well. And I find Nintendo is very, very good at doing remakes. You get like the FIFA or the Call of Duty syndrome where it's
careful where we're going with that one.
I know, but for a lot of people it feels it's a bad sort of retread of the same thing. It feels more like sort of a money grab sort of thing, where they've got, it's a new one the next year, like every year. Whereas Nintendo tends to do it with franchises where you feel it is nice when they do a little update. Sometimes they add a few things in, but it's sort of like a Mario Party. You want a Mario Party for the new system. They tend to try and make it reasonable updates. Or reasonable remakes, where it's sort of like, okay, we got new hardware. These things have been out for a decade now. Maybe it's time that we bought it to a new system. We bought out new copies of it so people can experience it again. I tend to trust them a bit more. They bring out Mario, and Mario works. Nintendo's good at not breaking that which is not broken. They don't try and tinker with anything. They might add something new, but you're always getting the experience that you had before. And for sometimes that's a bad thing. But in Nintendo's case, they tend to make fun games, and fun is something you can tack on a new story on it, and you're still having fun with that particular setup. So in that case, with Pokemon, if it means that more people can play the older games, then I'm all for it, because
that's really generally
fun.
How remakes are supposed to be. Introduce your old games to newer fans, whilst keeping it fresh and sort of definitely replayable for your current ones.
Yeah. I think it doesn't work so well in the more serious games, which is why Call of Duty ends up feeling a bit tired. But with Nintendo games, because they focus on the fun. It's just, I want to continue having fun in this world.
You can argue all you want, but Nintendo do and always have made the most fun games.
I guess as well you don't mind replaying them, because you know that sometimes at the start you'll catch the same Pokemon, but then halfway through you go, I didn't catch that before. Oh, cool. Whereas in some games it's all a bit samey, whereas games which are a bit more random as how you get things is...
I mean, especially in Pokemon's case, remaking and re-releasing some of the first-gen characters is actually quite essential, because you're trying to catch them all, and you can't transfer some of the earliest characters.
How many
so it's
are
also
there?
700 and something now, I think.
Oh, no.
So
there was only like 300 in first gen, wasn't there?
First gen was 151. Mew was a secret extra.
Way off.
Way off.
But especially in Pokemon's case, it does seem to be quite a useful thing having a remake because you know you get these Pokemon coming back into the more modern game. So I think it's a very good thing, and I think I'd love to see how it comes out, and I might end up playing it at some point. I've never been against playing Pokemon. It's always been a good romp.
You can never go wrong with Pokemon.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed it. I've never been, you know, Pearl frustrated me. It was very difficult to get past a certain point because you end up having to do 2 gyms and then going to another town before you can defeat this gym that was next in line. Very frustrating, but I wanted to get it done because I wanted to continue enjoying the game. So it's never a problem. In some games frustrate me and I just stop there. Pokemon, you still want to do it.
Well, you know that Pokemon's not going to be impossible either because older people do play it, but it's kids, and you don't want to frustrate a kid to the point where they put it down.
Yeah. So yeah, we've gone through all of the questions. I think it is a good spot to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So if there's any final words anybody wishes to make,
I would say, like for one of the other questions we had about the perfect team, why didn't you perhaps you could ask our fans if we actually got any watching this. Why don't you leave it in the comments below? You know, what do you think is the perfect team for Pokemon? Let's see your opinions on it.
List your perfect 6 in a team,
yeah. Give us a go, and you know we'll have a look at it, and we might chat about it in the next.
Oh, we might even try to catch them and play with them.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, do mention that, and any discourse you want to have in the comments of our podcast, please go ahead. Keep it civil. You know, as we've tried to keep these podcasts quite civil, but do go ahead.
As civil as possible.
Yeah. Or at least if you're not going to make it civil, make it entertaining.
Yeah.
If
it gives us a good laugh, that's all for it.
So yeah, I think we'll wrap up here for today, and it's been lovely having a chat with the two of you, and I hope our viewers have enjoyed this podcast once again, and we will catch you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe because that does help us out and does encourage us to continue to do these things. So until next time, ta-ta. This is Storm the Teacup,
Kaiser Dragon,
Jessikyaa,
and we're signing off.
Bye bye.